Welcome to Regulatory Requirement for Medical Devices and In Vitro Diagnostics in India, Lecture 8, that is how to obtain a license to manufacture a medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. Now, learning objective of this lecture: be aware of how to obtain a license to manufacture medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. Expected outcome: able to understand the steps need to obtain a license to manufacture a devices or in vitro diagnostics. Target audience: personnel working in the medical device industry, in vitro diagnostic manufacturers, innovators, startups involved in either medical devices or in vitro diagnostic kit industry, regulatory affair personnel, human ethics committee member, clinical trial team member, researcher, academician, students, and the person generally interested in medical devices. What will we learn in the lecture 8? We learn how to obtain a license to manufacture a medical devices and in vitro diagnostics, the sequence in the procedure for grant of device license, basic requirement of manufacturing license, forms, what are the forms applicable for grant of manufacturing license, technical documents required for grant of manufacturing license. So how to obtain a license to manufacture a medical devices. Any product that is controlled by Drugs and Cosmetic Act and rules as a drug need a license to manufacture. Why license is required? Because to keep a control on the product, to maintain the product efficacy, safety and the quality, to avoid duplicate and therefore harmful product away, keep track of the products moving in the market, keep consistency in the manufacturing of the product. To have all those criteria, the license is required, and through the license we can control these. How to obtain a license to manufacture medical devices? Now that we know medical devices are drug, and the drugs which are regulated under the Drugs and Cosmetic Act and rules thereunder, license is required. Let us now unroll the following aspect. Who issues the license? To obtain a license, who do you approach? How is the procedure to obtain a license, or to obtain a license, how do you approach? Now, in the medical device rules, we have discussed the authorities responsible for grant of manufacturing license, the state licensing authority and the central licensing authority. Two authorities, they are responsible for grant of manufacturing license of the medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. The controlling power of each authority has been prescribed in the medical device rule 2017. Also, we have discussed that for which class of the medical devices, who are the authorities. For manufacturing, the state licensing authority is responsible for grant of manufacturing license for class A and class B devices, and the central licensing authority, that is CDSCO, is responsible for grant of manufacturing license of class C and class D devices. In case of QMS verification, QMS audit for class A and class B, we discussed many times that notified body is responsible for QMS verification of the class A and class B medical device manufacturing unit, and the central licensing authority, they are responsible for QMS inspection of class C and class D devices. Notified body, who are the notified bodies responsible for QMS verification of the class A and class B devices? The notified body which is registered with the central licensing authority, they are only the responsible for QMS verification of the class A and class B devices. Now the rules, which rules deals with the grant of manufacturing license of the medical devices and in vitro diagnostics, which chapters have the provision for manufacturing of the medical devices. We have discussed in the medical device rule 2017, where the total 12 chapters have been incorporated and 96 rules are there. So chapter 4 of the medical device rules gives the provisions for grant of manufacturing license for medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. Under these chapters, different rules are there for different purpose. Rule 20 to rule 33 have given for each of the different types of manufacturing license. We'll discuss one by one these rules. Come to rule 20. The rule 20, that is application for manufacture of sale or for distribution of class A and class B medical devices. Under this rule, Any person who intends to manufacture a class A or class B medical devices or in vitro diagnostic shall make application in MD3 for grant of license or in MD4, that is loan license, through an online portal to the Central Licensing Authority, and when apply for grant of manufacturing license or loan license through this portal, this license will be diverted to the concerned state licensing authority who is responsible for grant of license. The application shall be accompanied with a fees as specified in the second schedule. We have also discussed that what is second schedule. Second schedule is the fees, details of the fees required to be submitted for different activity. So for manufacturing, what rules required to be submitted for different types of classes, it is prescribed in the second schedule. As per the second schedule, the applicant has to submit the requisite fees and also the requisite document, the technical document which is required to be submitted for grant of manufacturing license. That details has been given in the part 2 of the fourth schedule. The application shall be accompanied with an undertaking to effect that the requirement of quality management system as specified in the fifth schedule have been complied with. The applicant has to submit this undertaking that they are fulfilling the requirement of quality management system as specified in the fifth schedule. The state licensing authority who is responsible for grant of manufacturing license review the applications, and after being satisfied the requirement under these rules, they will grant the license to manufacture class A medical devices in MD5 or loan license in MD6 within 40 days from the date of receipt of the application. Rule 21, that is application for manufacturing of class C and class D devices. Here an application shall be made to the Central Licensing Authority through an online portal for grant of license to manufacture or grant of loan license to manufacture the medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. The application shall be accompanied with the fees as specified in the second schedule, and also the technical documents as specified in the part 2 of the fourth schedule. The scrutiny shall be completed by the Central Licensing Authority within a period of 45 days through online only, and where the documents are found to be complete and in order, the Central Licensing Authority shall cause an inspection of the manufacturing site. The inspection will be carried out by a team of the officer accompanied by an expert. If necessary, the experts may be co-opted for inspection of the manufacturing site of the class C or class D devices. Rule 22, that is the requirement for grant of manufacturing license or loan license. While making the application for grant of license or loan license, applicant shall meet the following requirements. What are those requirements? The site shall comply with the requirement of the quality management system, and undertaking in this regard has to be submitted by the applicant. The manufacturer has to appoint competent technical staff under whose direction and supervision the manufacturing activity of the medical devices shall be undertaken, and such staff shall possess the requisite qualification as specified in the Medical Device Rule 2017. The person should have bachelor degree in engineering or the pharmacy of the relevant field with minimum 2 years of experience, that is given in the Medical Device Rule 2017. Also, the manufacturer has to appoint competent technical staff with the degree in diploma or engineering or in the pharmacy or science or in the relevant areas with the experience of 2 years in the testing of the medical devices and in vitro diagnostics, whose direction and supervision the testing activity of the premises is carried out. Rule 23, that is inspection of grant of license or loan license for class C and class D devices. Before grant of license to manufacture for sale and distribution of the medical devices in respect of class C and class D, the manufacturing site shall be inspected within a period of 16 days. The timeline has been given in the medical device rule, and this inspection will be carried out by a team comprising of not less than 2 medical device officer. However, no inspection for the medical device manufacturing site for grant of loan license is required if the manufacturing site is already licensed to manufacture such medical devices for sale and distribution. This provision we have made to avoid unnecessary repetition of the inspection. If the facility is already inspected earlier and they have complied with the QMS as specified in the 5th schedule at the time of grant of loan license by the loanee firm, no further inspection generally required to be carried out. The inspection report: after completion of the inspection, the inspection team shall forward the descriptive report containing the findings of the inspection and their recommendation. They have to submit to the Central Licensing Authority through online portal, and also forward a copy of the same to the applicant. Rule 25, that is the grant of license or loan license to manufacture for sale or distribution of medical devices. If the Central Licensing Authority, after receipt of the satisfied report and the document as required under 4th schedule of the Medical Device Rule 2017, if the documents and inspection reports found satisfactory by the Central Licensing Authority, a license shall be granted in Form MD9 or the loan license in Form MD10. The Central Licensing Authority may also reject the application for the reason to be recorded in writing within a period of 45 days from the date of the inspection of the report if certain major non-compliances were observed by the Central Licensing Authority. In case of the investigational medical devices or new in vitro medical devices, the applicant shall obtain prior permission in Form 27 or Form 29 from the Central Licensing Authority, and no license to manufacture any class of such devices shall be granted without such permission. The applicant has to establish the safety and performance of the devices which falls under the investigational medical devices, or if it is a new in vitro diagnostic. After obtaining the permission, they will apply to the Central Licensing Authority for grant of manufacturing license or loan license in Form MD9 or MD10. Now Rule 26. Rule 26 gives the conditions of the license, manufacturing license or loan license. After grant of the license or the loan license in Form 5 or Form MD6 or Form MD9 or Form MD10, as may be case, the license holder shall comply with the conditions. The conditions of the licenses is mentioned in the Rule 26. Certain condition like the license holder has to produce the license before the medical device officer or the Central Licensing Authority in case they wish to examine their license for any reason. They have to inform to the licensing authority in case of any changes in the premises, in the facility, in the quality control of the manufacturing of the medical devices. They have to inform to the licensing authority within a stipulated timeline for any change in the constitution of the firm. They have to inform the licensing authority about any adverse event observed by them on their product manufactured by the manufacturer for marketing into the country. They have to also inform any major changes in the manufacturing of the medical devices. If there is a change in the intended use of the devices, or if there is a change in the sterilization process of the devices, or if there is a change in the material of construction of the devices, all those changes which falls under the major category of the major changes as specified in the schedules, they have to intimate to the Central Licensing Authority or the State Licensing Authority, and for the major changes they need to obtain the prior approval. For minor changes only they have to inform by way of the notification. Rule 27, that is change in the constitution. In case of change in the constitution of the licensee, after grant of the license, the manufacturer inform the Central Licensing or State Licensing Authority as the case may be within 45 days and shall make application for grant of license within period of 180 days from the date of such changes, and in such cases a fresh license is required to be obtained. Rule 28, that is unannounced inspection by the state licensing authority. As we have discussed earlier, for the QMS verification of the class A and class B devices, the state licensing authority shall be responsible for grant of manufacturing license or grant of loan license based on the QMS audit carried out by the notified body. So under this rule, that provision has been made, the state licensing authority shall carry out the inspection of 2% of the site which have been recommended by the notified body for grant of manufacturing license. Rule 29, that is the validity of the license. A license or loan license issued in Form MD5, Form MD6, Form MD9 or Form MD10 shall remain valid in perpetuity. We have discussed earlier also many times, subject to the payment of the retention fees as specified in the second schedule at the interval of every 5 years from the date of its issue. Then their license will be considered in perpetuity till the suspension or cancellation of the license by the licensing authority or till the withdrawn by the licensee. The suspension and cancellation of the license under Rule 30, that provision has been made, where the licensee contravene any provisions of the Act and these rules, the licensing authority shall, after giving so cause as to why such an order should not be passed, shall by an order or for the reason to be recorded in writing, suspend it for such a period as it considered necessary, either wholly or in respect of any of the medical devices, or cancel the license or the loan license. The suspension and cancellation of the license provision have been made under this rules. Before cancellation or suspension, the licensing authority shall so cause the licensee, and if the proper justification is not there, the licensing authority may cancel or suspend the license for the particular reason. Rule 31, the provision for grant of test license to manufacture medical devices or in vitro diagnostics for test and evaluation or clinical investigation. For a small quantity of class A, class B, class C and class D devices, the manufacturer shall obtain test license to manufacture the test batches for the purpose of test analysis, for the purpose of evaluation, for the purpose of clinical investigation or for the purpose of demonstration. Under this test license, they will manufacture the test batches, they will generate the certain data, they will generate the QC data, they will generate the safety data, they will generate the efficacy data, and the data they will submit for grant of manufacturing of the particular medical devices. That provision has been made. Earlier this license was issued by the state licensing authority. Now the central licensing authority is responsible for grant of test license for all classes of the medical devices. While submitting the application, the applicant has to submit the certain information. They have to submit the brief description of the medical devices, its intended use, material of construction, device, undertaking stating that the required facility including the equipment, instrument and the personnel have been provided to the manufacturer of such medical devices. Whatever the list of the equipment or instrument is there, they have to give that. They have to submit the details of the list of the qualified person. They have to submit the details of the QC parameter of the medical devices or the in vitro diagnostic to be manufactured for test and analysis. They have to submit the test method. They have to submit the specification of the product. They have to submit the layout plan of the facility. All those information the applicant has to submit it along with the requisite fees to the central licensing authority, and the central licensing authority will grant the test license for the purpose of test and analysis of the product. Now, basic requirement for applying the manufacturing license. While applying the license to the concerned state licensing authority or the central licensing authority, the manufacturer, they have to fulfill the requirement as mentioned in the Medical Device Rule 2017. The facility should be in the line of quality management system as prescribed in the 5th schedule of the Medical Device Rule 2017. The equipments required for manufacturing of the particular devices to be manufactured, the technical manpower, the documentation of the activities, all the SOPs, work instructions, procedures. They have to set up the laboratory and instruments for testing of the devices and materials. All these facilities are to be inspected and scrutinized during the inspection of the firm by the licensing authority or by the notified body. Then what technical document required to be submitted at the time of submission of the application? The details of the technical documents has been given in the 4th schedule of the Medical Device Rule 2017, and many times also we have discussed the same. The documents that require to be submitted with respect to the manufacturing of the in vitro diagnostics or medical devices, the device description, intended use of the devices, specification including the variant and accessory, material of construction, what is the material of construction of the devices, working principles and use of the novel technology if any, the labels of the devices, package inserts, IFU, user manual, wherever applicable, that information they require to be submitted, the summary of any reported serious adverse event in India and action taken by the manufacturer, analytical performance summary including the sensitivity and specificity that is required for the in vitro diagnostics, the site master file or plant master file that is given in the part 3 of the 4th schedule, device master file as specified in appendix 2 of the medical devices or appendix 3 for the in vitro diagnostics, constitution details of the firm, the essential principle checklist for demonstrating conformity to the essential principles for safety and performance of the medical devices, undertaking signed by the manufacturer stating that the manufacturing site is in compliance with the provision of quality management system as specified in the Medical Device Rule 2017 5th schedule, and for in vitro diagnostic performance evaluation report is also required to be submitted. Now fees and forms for the medical devices. Relevant form we have already discussed that. Here the forms for grant of manufacturing of class A, class B, class C and class D devices. MD3, that is the application for manufacturing license for class A and class B devices. MD4, that is the loan license application for class A and class B devices. MD7, that is the application for grant of manufacturing license for class C and class D devices. MD8, application for loan license class C and class D devices. MD5, that is the manufacturing license issued by the state licensing authority for class A and class B devices. MD6, that is the loan license issued by the state licensing authority for class A and class B devices. MD9 is the manufacturing license issued by the central licensing authority for class C and class D devices. MD10, that is the loan license issued by the central licensing authority for class C and class D devices. Fees for medical devices and in vitro diagnostic kits. For class A and class B medical devices, site fees is 5,000 and rupees 500 each distinct medical devices. For class C and class D medical devices and in vitro diagnostics, the site fees is 50,000 and the product fees, device fees for each distinct medical devices 1,000 Indian rupees. This is the fees structure, and the forms, application forms related to manufacture and loan license for different class of the medical devices, and the license or loan license for different class of the medical devices. Now the standards of the medical devices. What is standards is applied for the medical devices being manufactured by the manufacturers. Rule 7 of the Medical Device Rule 2017 gives the provisions for product standard of the medical devices. As per Rule 7, Bureau of Indian Standard or the standards set up by the Central Licensing Authority is applicable for the devices which is being manufactured in the country. If there is no BIS standard or no standard approved by the Central Licensing Authority for the particular medical devices, the other international standards, ISO, International Organization for Standardization, or International Electrotechnical Committee IEC standards is applicable for those devices. If there is no ISO or international standard is available, in such cases the manufacturer's validated standards approved by the Central Licensing Authority is applicable. So the standards applied for the devices, that provision has been given in the Rule 7 of the Medical Device Rule 2017. Now the labeling provision of the medical devices, what labeling requirement has to be followed by the manufacturers, also that is followed for the imported products. So the labeling provision for the medical devices, that is given in the chapter 6, and the rule 44 gives the details what labeling requirement is there for the medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. The information shall be printed indelible ink on the label, on the self pack of the medical devices, or on the outer cover of the medical devices, and on every outer covering in which the medical devices is packed. The information which are to be submitted are as under: the name of the medical devices, that has to be mentioned on the label of the devices, the details necessary for the user to identify the devices and its use, if it is there, it has to be mentioned, the name of the manufacturer and address of the manufacturing premises where the device has been manufactured, detailed address has to be mentioned on the label, the correct statement about the quantity in terms of weight, measures, volume, number of units, wherever is applicable they have to mention in metric system, the month and year of the manufacture or expiry, that is the shelf life of the product, has to be mentioned on the label. To provide wherever required the indication that the device contain medicinal or biological substances, if so the information has to be mentioned on the label of the product. To provide a distinct batch number or lot number preceded by lot number or lot or batch number or B dot and no dot, this information they have to mention on the label of the product. If there are any special storage or handling condition applicable for the devices, that information also has to be mentioned on the label. If the device is applied as a sterile, if it is sterile state, and the sterilization method has to be mentioned. Like if it is sterilized by ETO, in the label the symbol or ETO, that sort of information has to be mentioned on the label of the product. Warning or precaution to draw the attention of the users of the medical devices, if the device required so, that information has also need to be mentioned on the label. If it is a single use devices, it has to be mentioned on the label of the product. If the medical devices is intended for distribution to the medical professionals as a free samples, physician sample not to be sold, that caption has to be captured on the label of the product, and other such information that require to be mentioned on the label of the medical devices. Now the what procedure followed for grant of manufacturing license. This is the one slide where the sort of flow chart is there. The risk based classification, we have discussed that. Based on the risk of the classes, medical devices and in vitro diagnostics have been classified as class A, class B, class C and class D devices. And also we have discussed for class A devices, state licensing authorities is responsible for grant of manufacturing license, and the central license is responsible for class C and class D devices. The application for all the classes has to be submitted through the center online portal, and for A and B medical devices the application directly diverted to the concerned state licensing authority, and for C and D it is with the central licensing authority. The documents, the requisite fees and the application form that we have discussed, once it is submitted to the central licensing authority or the state licensing authority as per the requirement of the medical device rule 2017, and if the document found satisfactory, the conformity assessment is to be carried out. For class A and class B, the notified body will audit the site, manufacturing site of class A and class B devices with respect to verifying the conformance of the quality management system. For class C and class D, the central licensing authority, the officers of the central licensing authority will be responsible for audit of inspection of the class C or class D devices with respect to conformance of the QMS. After submitting the report, if the report found satisfactory and the technical document submitted by the firm is in order, the licensing authority shall grant the license to the manufacturer of the class C and class D devices, and the state licensing authority, based on the audit report of the notified body and the technical document submitted by the manufacturers of class A and class B, they will consider their application for grant of manufacturing license or grant of the loan license. We have also discussed that MD5, that is the manufacturing license for class A and class B devices, MD9, that is the manufacturing license for class C and class D devices, MD6, loan license for class A and class B, MD10 is the loan license for class C and class D devices. So the license issued by the central licensing authority, we have also discussed that is in perpetual. There is no validity provided the licensee shall submit the requisite retention fees at the interval of every 5 years. So this is the procedure for grant of license. Now forms we have discussed, this is the one slides where all the relevant form related to manufacturing of license or loan license, that is related to medical devices and in vitro diagnostic, have been given. The license to manufacture class A and class B devices, application in MD3, and the license will issue in MD5. Loan license for A and B, MD4 is the application, MD6 is license. For C and D, application is MD7, license in MD9. Loan license for manufacture of the class C and class D devices, application is MD8, license is MD10. Forms in which the audit or inspection book shall be maintained by the licensee, MD11. License to manufacture the medical devices for the purpose of test, evaluation or clinical investigation, application in MD12, license is in MD13. Permission to conduct the clinical investigation of the investigational devices, application in MD22, and the permission is granted by the central licensing authority in MD23. Permission to conduct the clinical performance evaluation of new in vitro diagnostics, MD24, application, and the permission is in MD25. Permission to manufacture for sale or for distribution of the medical devices which does not have the predicate devices, MD26 is the application and the permission is MD27. Permission to manufacture for sale or distribution of the new in vitro diagnostics, application MD28, and the permission is issued in MD29. These different forms have been described in the Medical Device Rule 2017. So in this lecture we have covered what are the rules applicable for the grant of manufacturing license, who are the authorities responsible for grant of manufacturing license for class A, class B devices, and who are the authority responsible for manufacturing of license for class C or class D devices. We have also covered which rules, which chapters applicable for the medical devices, what standard is required, what is the labeling provision applicable for the medical devices and in vitro diagnostics. All that topics we have covered in this chapter. So if you have some more information, you require some more detail about the provisions of the medical device rule, you go through the website of the CDSCO where the medical device rule is there, and if you have any further doubts, you want to seek clarification, you approach to us for further clarification. Now just have some sort of question answer session. So we'll take 1-2 questions, whether you understand or not, have you aware of that or not. Now name the 2 different licensing authority in the country who is responsible for grant of manufacturing license. we have discussed so many times, that is state licensing authority and the central licensing authority. Now, which forms is to be filled for permission to conduct the clinical investigation? The forms required to obtain the permission to conduct the clinical investigation, it's MD 23. Now, what is MD 3? MD 3 is the license to manufacture class A or class B medical devices. It is not a license, it is a application for grant of license to manufacture class A and class B devices. So, thank you very much, and hope next chapter we will cover the remaining part of the medical device rule 2017. So, in summary, the lecture we briefly learned about the how to obtain the manufacturing license, the sequence of the procedure of the grant of the manufacturing license, basic requirement for the manufacturing license, documents for grant of medical device manufacturing license, and the forms. So, I hope you understand the requirement for the grant of manufacturing license. Thank you very much.